under the guide of September when life
One of my favorite songs. I love it. Robert, do you recognize this image up here? Robert sent me this beautiful watercolor during the holiday season. He's a watercolor artist, quite good at it, I might add. And as I was thinking about this talk, I thought, you know, that picture really does say it all, that willingness to stand sort of in that vastness of our life experience and reflect, look out, see the beauty, and realize what it's all about. That Glenda talked about, we focus on things, that floodlight perspective rather than that spotlight perspective, which sometimes gets us in trouble. So thank you for that beautiful watercolor. I appreciate that. So this time of reflection, as we have been through this busy year, this busy holiday season, if we look back at the news and we look back at our own family dramas and we look at our work employment situations and our bank accounts and relationships and whatever it is that we choose to look at, I bet you that a lot of us have experienced a lot of chaos this year. Anybody not had any chaos? Yeah. Most of us have had something. And if it hasn't been chaos, it has been change. Because change is a given in our life experience. So things change. And this entire talk is about how do we develop the capacity to remember, to reflect, to take a look at our life journey, maybe our entire life journey, maybe our recent life journey, whatever it is. Remember the truth of our experiences, take stock of where we've been skillful and where we haven't been so skillful, and move forward with our life experience. Sort of that mini life review. We get a chance to do that at the end of every year, certainly at Common Ground when we come together on New Year's Eve. And we are invited to find those knots in our consciousness that are holding us back. We actually take a rope, a little cord, and tie a knot, and then contemplate that to see if we're willing to untie that knot and release it. This opportunity to move forward with our life experience. To see, this whole month we've been talking about the choice to claim the holiness of our experience, to claim the holiness of the holidays, to find the sacred within whatever is going on in the moment. That's a biggie, and it's a choice. So all month we celebrated the Advent wreath, love, peace, joy, hope. We looked at that, the choice to focus on those things. And sometimes other stuff gets in the way. Know what I mean? Yeah. So when we can actually see every moment, in the Course in Miracles language, it would be every moment as a holy encounter. When we see every moment as a holy encounter, every moment as a sacred connection with life as it is, things begin to change a little bit for us. We become a little softer with ourselves, a little more allowing with ourselves, a little bit more permissive with our life experience, so that we can actually rejoice and celebrate our life as it is and embrace wholeheartedly this life experience and actually love the life we're living. I don't want you to raise your hand, but how many of you are actually loving the life you're living today? Some people might not want to raise a hand because stuff is getting in the way. So this is an opportunity for us to shift our attention to what matters most, to the new possibilities that are waiting to be birthed, that are always already there, but we just haven't recognized them yet. To calm down and to prepare for whatever comes next, whatever that is. It's all about that inquiry, living a life that is willing to inquire into what is the meaning of this? How does this fit into my own sacred soul journey? Got to pay attention. And so this morning, David, go to the next slide for me. This morning I'm going to be reading from Debbie Ford's book, The 21-Day Consciousness Cleanse. Those are Sufi feet, by the way. Those are Sufi feet. And this is what she says about this idea of paying attention, noticing what's getting in the way and what's supporting our journey. She says, I once heard an old Sufi story that illustrates with simple clarity how the human self sometimes is stuck in the past, holding on to outdated beliefs and assumptions that get in the way of joyfully dancing through life. The tale demonstrates how we often insist on wearing garments that are too small and too tight to give us the comfort we need to rejoice and experience delight. The story goes like this. A woman says to her friend, oh, poor Lila, she really has suffered for what she believes. And her friend says, well, what does she believe? Lila believes that she can continue to wear a size 6 pair of shoes on her size 9 feet. Wow, how painful is that? What can we do to help her? Absolutely nothing. All we can do is pray that those size 6 shoes fall apart at the seams so that Lila is finally forced to throw them away and get a new pair of shoes that fit. Lila has a habit of walking around day after day, pinching off her power, forcing herself to limp through life as a diminished version of herself, trying to stay small when the truth is she is greater than she is willing to believe. Staying stuck in old habits dims our light, diminishes our spirits, and keeps us from dancing with delight. I love that story because it is a good metaphor for what we sometimes do to ourselves. We try to box ourselves in with our old habits, our old ideas, our old ways of being. This is a metaphor, and sometimes, guess what? Our life has to fall apart at the seams to make way for what's new. Have you noticed? Have you noticed? In 12-step, we would say it's that recognition of our powerlessness. It's being on that bended knee when things are just so darn confusing and difficult that things have to fall apart so we can recreate them in a new way. That's what we're going to talk about. This idea that if we're not willing to say, wow, these size 6 shoes are not feeling that good anymore. Those size 6 experiences that just don't fit. If we're not willing to look at it and we keep, squeezing our feet into those shoes, we're not going to be able to make those changes. So we've got to become aware of those habits or those thoughts or those beliefs or the way our mind works. We've got to become aware of that, clean out our closets. In our family, we've got a mysterious black hole in my daughter's house, and stuff just disappears. Just disappears. Glasses, iPod chargers, iPhones, everything that's important disappears. Well, my daughter was cleaning out closets, and guess what? By living an examined, reflective life, she cleaned out a closet that she hadn't visited for a while, and guess what she found? Her glasses that had been missing for 2 or 3 weeks. Without doing the cleaning, without doing the examining, without revisiting that icky, stuck area of her closet, she would never have found those glasses. Now, how they got there is another mystery. But there is the truth that there are lost parts of ourselves that we are not claiming. There are pieces of ourselves that we give away to other people that we need to find and reclaim for ourselves. Sometimes we give ourselves away, whatever the deal is. But if we're not willing to look for it, metaphorically, and recognize that the shoe doesn't fit, recognize that we need to clean out that messy closet, we're not going to be able to make way for the new. We're just not going to be able to do that. So we've got to be willing to observe how we show up in the world. Go inside, align with our highest self, and observe how our outside is outpicturing. What does it look like today? And bring our essence and our radiance to that. Because when we can bring our higher self, our neutral witness, to whatever that unskillful thing is, or that thing is that's getting in the way, it gives us an opportunity to make a change. And this is the deal. When we see that thing, whatever it is, we need to make a change. We want to get rid of that old habit. We want to find a new pair of shoes, get a new groove on. Remember that movie, Stella Got a New Groove? We want to get a new groove on, guess what? We do that without berating ourselves, without making ourselves bad, without shaming ourselves. We just recognize, wow, it's time for a change. These shoes don't fit. Let's pass them on to somebody else. Well, no, that's probably a very bad metaphor. Let's not pass our junk on to anybody else. Let's let them fall apart at the seams and do something else. But the thing is, if we're not willing in the 12-step work, it's take that searching and fearless inventory of how we're showing up in the world. If we're not willing to do that, we're going to get stuck. And I'm not talking about doing that in a way that allows us to be bitter and blaming and shaming and all of that. I'm talking about doing that with a sense of gentleness, with honor for who we are and our sacred holy nature. Got to recognize the stuff, but we don't have to be bitter about it or shaming or blaming in the process. To be honest, but not hurtful and harmful. To be aware of these things, but don't get consumed by them, you see. Sometimes we get overly identified with this stuff that's getting in the way, and then we fall apart at the seams, and we're not ready to put ourselves back together. On Christmas Eve, one of the people that was here reminded me of this talk, this idea of taking a look at what's not working anymore. The person was receiving texts from a child that wasn't with her for the evening, and there was a sense of melancholy and sadness about that. Melancholy and sadness, that getting consumed by reflecting on the past. We've got to be real careful that we don't fall into that trap. It's a razor's edge, because we've all had experiences that are painful, and if we're reflecting in a way that is unhealthy or that is too sad, too depressed, too melancholy, we're going to fall into the chasm and we're not going to be able to as effectively make those changes and make those habits, get those habits heading in the right direction. So the first thing we got to do is wrap our mind around the idea that we focus on things, and what we notice is what we perceive and what we live. So if we're focusing on the absence of the child on Christmas Eve, that's going to color our whole experience, you see. Because we're always in this continuum from knowing who we are and being real connected with the divine, knowing the holy and knowing the sacred, and it doesn't take a lot to throw us off. It doesn't take a lot to derail us and push us into something that doesn't feel very good. Have you noticed how that works? Yeah. And this is the deal. The way we see the world, the way we're reflecting on our life experiences has a whole lot to do with the way we experience every moment. It has a lot to do with the way we experience our world, the way we're seeing it. Our consciousness determines how our world outpictures for us. Now, this is the good news. We say in this community that we are human. We're all wearing a people suit, so we get to walk around in the world, in the human chaos, the human condition, and we have within us this divinity that we all have the opportunity to live and express. That never changes. Our consciousness, our divine self, our God spark, that connection is always there. What happens is, that never changes, but what happens is we forget. That's why this idea of remembering is so important. We forget our connection with that, and then we don't see from that perspective when we're with our life experience, when we're reflecting on the moment, when we're reflecting on the past, when we're just in life experience in itself. So the idea is we've got to see with new eyes. We've got to feel with new feet. Say, wow, that hurts. I need new shoes. We've got to see with new eyes, notice things in a new way, see things as a miracle, as Glenda said. And when we can actually do that, when we see things in a new way, you know what happens? That of itself has the power to transform our experience. Just the simple capacity to see it in a new way. Just to see it in a new way transforms it. So if you've got stuff in your life that you've been hauling around as baggage, and every time it's time to reflect on it, that's part of what you're reflecting on, that same old stuff, remember that you get to reflect on it in a new way. See it in a new way. See it through soft eyes. not blaming eyes, not bitter eyes, not critical eyes, not judgmental eyes, but in a new way that's softer, more loving, kinder, not filled with shame and blame. And when you can do that, that transforms whatever that experience is that helps you move forward in this moment. So we got to wake up. We got to remember that what we look at, how we see our life experience, when we're taking our inventory and looking at things, makes a difference to us, because probably we're not seeing the whole picture if all we're seeing is the pain or the woundedness or the chaos or the difficulty or the drama. If we're not willing to look at the miracle within that experience. I was late this morning because we had drama going on at my house, as we do often. And you know, I told my daughter, I said, okay, this is the deal. Just say you're sorry. Just say you're sorry. Try a new approach. But it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. Da, 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 da. I said, that's okay. Are you sorry that things are the way they are right now? Yeah. Then say you're sorry. Try something new. See a bigger picture here. Don't get stuck on the problem. Don't get stuck on the issue. Don't get stuck on the dysfunction. Just say you're sorry because you are sorry. I can tell you're sorry that this day is already starting out like this. That's the truth. You are sorry. Don't take blame for anything that's not yours. But try a new approach here and see if that softens and changes the experience for you. Get a new shoe. Get a new shoe. If you don't do that, you can't open to something new happening. The same old, same old, same old, same old will continue to outpicture over and over and over again. So this idea of reflecting, it's about tapping into that divine self that gets inspired enough to try something new so that it becomes that magical, ordinary moment that is a reflection of the sacred and the holy. No matter what it is, no matter how difficult it is, so that we can get a new shoe that fits for that circumstance, not for an old circumstance. And that is what becomes the source of our enthusiasm for life and our capacity to embrace the moment and love the life that we're living. When it comes together, see, we get to choose. This whole month we've been talking about choice. We get to choose whether we make our experiences sacred and holy or not. And when we're reflecting on things that have gotten in the way, and we're reflecting on moving forward in our journey, perfect time to do it this time of year, usually we're stuck on things that haven't worked well. We're stuck on things that have gotten in the way. But when we can choose to make that sacred and holy, then actually it's seeing the God in that experience. Everything is God, one of our authors says. Everything is God. It's just a matter of seeing deeply enough until that God spark is revealed. And that's what this idea of reflection is about. Seeing deeply enough that we can see past the surface, the icky stuff, and recognize the God spark within. So it is possible for us to shift when we have an opportunity to live this examined life. It's possible for us to shift our attention away from the stuff that's icky to the stuff that is life-affirming, that lets us have a sense of well-being, so that we can release this stuff that doesn't fit, doesn't fill us any longer. That idea of, go ahead, let life fall apart at the seams in an appropriate way, so that you can make room for the new shoe. Make room for whatever is to come next. That's this whole journey that we're on as we start this new year. Thank you for listening. So we hope today